Nikola Jokic is averaging the most points he's ever averaged in the NBA, or right around 29. He's shooting 43% from three, which is a career high. He's averaging a triple-double, which we have said, not me, but we have said, hey, if you average a triple-double, you should get an MVP. Remember that dumb stuff that we said about Russell Westbrook 7 or 8 years ago? And we gave him an MVP because we felt bad for him. Because we gave an MVP for him because of the number 10. I digress. But with Jokic, what he's doing, in a 30-20-20 game on Friday night, and then you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who dropped 40 on Jokic's Denver Nuggets on national TV. How do we determine this MVP conversation? Because it felt like a month ago, we decided that Jokic was not winning another MVP, at least not this year, and we decided that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was going to win an MVP this year. Are we sure?
Oh, we're not sure, and we shouldn't be sure. I don't know what to do. Luckily, like at Daily Times, we don't vote for these awards. It is like a company policy, and I'm glad that we don't. I wouldn't know as of today. On Friday, I was ready to vote for Nikola Jokic. Today, I am not as ready to vote for Nikola Jokic. I am very much compelled by both arguments. I do think my only thing on this is that I would encourage people, or at least I know the way that I would view it. I don't think we should hold the fact that Nikola Jokic has won 3 times against him. I kind of think we should actually use it for him as an argument, like in terms of ties, that his sustained greatness and stuff like that too should like also like it shouldn't be a detriment. The fact that this guy has been this great and is an all-time great, 15 years from now when we look back at seasons, like if Nikola Jokic plays his best season and doesn't win MVP, like that is sort of a weird sort of like postcard moment. Like it would be nice to have that as a way to sort of reconcile what we're seeing in terms of stats. Yeah. But like, I mean, Shai has been incredible. He's been as good and he's on a better team. It's really, really hard to kind of separate those two. It's a really fun, I generally don't like MVP debates. This is a really fun one. Because it's about basketball.
It's not toxic. That's the it ain't
it's about
toxic.
basketball. It is about basketball. It is about I mean, I just don't want it to devolve into like what does valuable mean? Like I don't like that part of it. That discussion because like dude, we've been doing that for like 85 years. Like just like
right.
It means what your heart wants it to mean. But like it is trying to judge which one of these players has had the better season is fascinating.
I think it's funny. I think Bobby Marks from ESPN, I'm reading a tweet, and I'm sure Dakota's going to put it on the screen for YouTube. He says, I do not vote for league honors, but I have a question. What is the criteria for MVP? 1, best player. 2, impacts his team the most. 3, team record. 4, a combination of all 3. And there is no actual defined thing. It's a combination. It is about feel. It's largely about feel, which means it's really hard for us to say exactly what it is because you have 120 or I think 100 separate voters in ways that 100 separate people have their own individual criteria and each year has its own criteria, like the story of each year. I'm not a quote unquote narrative voter.
Let's groupthink. This is great. Like, that's what I mean. Like, this is great. This is what it's about. This is why it's a diverse set of voters. This is going to be Let's Group Think. This is going to be a year where I think the MVP is going to be really close. I don't think that this is going to be one of those years where if you don't vote for Nikola Jokic, you hate thing X. Or if you don't vote for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you hate thing X. You're not voting against someone, you're voting for someone. And I think that is a critical element of this that we don't really discuss anymore because one year, someone decided to bring race into the MVP discussion. And baby, let me tell you, that shit wasn't fun. Wasn't fun. Can I veer us into a different direction briefly here on this?
I'm afraid.
No, it's like another basketball thing too. It is like he's not going to win MVP. He may not finish in the top 5, weirdly because of his stats. But like Donovan Mitchell's season too, and like the way that he has said, I will do less. My usage will go down. I will defend more. I will enable people around me. I'll make others better too. He has had an incredible season. And it is like one of those types of things that, it just feels weird to penalize him in terms of voting because his counting stats aren't the same as they've been in the past when, again, that team is awesome. And he's playing on both sides of the ball, and that team is nowhere near as good without him. And it is just like, it's just there's just so much good basketball happening this season. It is a really fun, robust basketball debate. It should be, at least. And I think, there's interesting. 1 and 2 is fascinating. 3 through 6 on a ballot is really, really fascinating.
5. It's only 5.
No, but I mean, there's going to be a guy left off the ballot. I could have made a pretty compelling LeBron James case to be on the ballot. The groin injury probably knocks him out of a lot of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I think certainly Jason Tatum, plays both sides of the basketball on a really good freaking team. Giannis's numbers this season are insane. Again, and it's good. There's so much good basketball.
This is one of those years where we're going to look at once again in a time capsule. And I think one of the best, there's some MVP years where you're like, man, this was going to be really close no matter what happens. Mm-hmm. There were some years that I've covered and I'm like, man, this is going to be really weird, right? The Joel Embiid Jokic year, very weird. This is not the weird year. This is the compelling year. The Russell Westbrook year, really weird because that was not about a bunch of things that it should have been about. Mm-hmm. It's funny you mentioned Jokic because I think of Michael Jordan's greatest seasons. He didn't win MVP. 90, he didn't win MVP.
And I don't like that. I don't like that about his legacy. It's a weird part of his legacy.
Well, that was a weird year because Charles Barkley received the most number 1 votes, but Magic Johnson won the award. It's weird. In 93, he didn't win it. Charles Barkley won it. It's a weird thing. And I'm one of those guys that goes deep into the crates of history.
You love the MVP. You are like an MVP. I'm
not a nerd. I'm not one of the MVP geeks. I'm a historical nerd.
You're historical. You're as an MVP historian is incredible. People should know that about you. It's a tremendous parlor trick that you have.
It is. We can if you ask me a year, I will guarantee you that post merger I can tell you why I said player won MVP. Now, the very, very last word, because this is from producer Dakota, and he sent me this yesterday, and I thought this was really, 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 really good, right? What is most likely to happen, or more likely to happen, Dan? The Cavs make it to the NBA Finals, or the Thunder do not?
Okay. This is a really good question, Dakota. I prefer something lazier than this next time. I think it is more likely that the Cavs make it to the NBA Finals. But it's close. Because I think there's a decent chance we see the Cavs and the Thunder in the NBA Finals. That feels like a pretty logical endpoint in a lot of ways. Now, the arguments against one is sort of the arguments against the other when it comes to we haven't seen you do it before in the playoffs. But both teams have tremendous depth. They have size. I kind of like Cleveland. I mean, I definitely like Cleveland's offensive punch more than I like the Thunder's. I do think that they're just top to bottom shot making. I like it better. I think the Thunder's sort of defensive thrust is a little higher in terms of their physicality.
Yeah.
But it's close. I mean, when I've seen Cleveland play this year, they've defended. They've really defended physically. They're huge in the front court with Mobley. Both teams are really similar. Obviously, Shai is the difference maker between these two teams, but I do think and I was talking to some agents about this before the Boston game last night. They were asking me basically if you had to bet your life on a team, who would it be at this point, and to make the finals. And I was are we I don't want to have to make that bet, to be totally clear. After I said, that's a horrible thing to ask me to do. After that, I kind of landed on Cleveland as a team that I think I really believe in.
The weird thing for us with Cleveland is, like you said, it's the point of we've never seen them do it together, but they have the ingredients. It's almost similar to in a lighter way, similar to the conversation that we had about Boston, except Boston has made it to the NBA Finals. They've made it through the gauntlet of the Eastern Conference at least once, and they've made it to the doorstep all those years, going into 5 of the last 7, Eastern Conference Finals and all that type of stuff. Like they're there. The only reason I wouldn't say Cleveland is because I think Boston, if Boston is healthy and whole, Jesus, they are just good. Like, it's no other way to put it, is that if they are completely healthy and completely concentrated, the question you have is health. Porzingis, Horford, Holiday. You've got 3 players in your rotation who are old or hurt, or old and hurt. That's a lot to ask about. That's a lot to ask for a top-ish heavy team.
Their 1 through 7, and their 1 through 7 is awesome. Right?
Yes.
Like their 1 through 7 is
and you
incredible.
win with 7 in the playoffs.
You win with 7 in the playoffs. But like 7 to 8 and like 7 to 9 is where it really gets dicey for them in ways that it's not true for the Thunder, the Celtics, or I'm sorry, the Cavs. A lot of teams really that are in this sort of like contender conversation. Like that to me is like the big difference, right? Is that is in those places, and like how much that matters in a playoff series is hard to say. I do think one thing that this is completely anecdotal in the playoffs, and I don't know if you feel like this, when like every year there's like one series that gets flipped by like an eighth man. Like last year was Nikola Alexander Walker.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and that was, I believe, Phoenix, right? Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Like where like a guy who just kind of has like a heater, you know what I mean? And like, I don't know I don't know who that would be on Boston.
It's going to be somebody.
I don't know if they need it though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, they're so good 1 through 7. Like,
but the margins are, here's the thing. They're so good. And we think of them in the way that we thought of the Celtics last year, or the run through the playoffs last year. They were not challenged. They didn't have a single hard series at all, not even in the finals. This year's not going to be that. They're going to have a lot of landmines along the way. I don't know if there's going to be a single easy series for any team in the NBA this year. Like, you're going to have some series that aren't as compelling as others, but I think you're going to have competitive series across the board. Even if you know what the outcome is going to be, you can look at it and say, yeah, this is going to be a tough 6. And that's where I think Cleveland is aided in a way, because like you said, let's give Donovan Mitchell his credit here. At some point, he's going to say, enough of this, and I need to take this thing over. And he has the ability, even at 6'1 3/4, as a shooting guard, to take over a game and take over a series similar to a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in that way. Maybe not at the same level of efficiency, because Shai.
They're going to win 60 games.
Yes. They're good. They're not the Atlanta Hawks of 2015 or whatever year that was. This is not that. You have 2 high-level players who can extend beyond their regular season performance, in Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley, who I think is Tim Duncan if Tim Duncan were skinnier and came up in the league where you told big men that you had to shoot threes. That's what I think about Evan Mobley in that way. And then with Oklahoma City, you're looking at, man, all they got is wings. And I don't say all they got is wings is a bad thing. They're like Oprah giving away cars. You got a wing. You got a wing. You got a wing. Jalen Williams, Lou Dort, Shai, like they have more of that.
Aaron Wiggins.
Yes, you have more of that than any other team. And I firmly believe in this NBA, you used to win with bigs. I still think you by and large can win with bigs. But now you win with wings.
I think the bigs too, I think Oklahoma City's bigs are fascinating. You know what I mean? Like one of the things, like, I thought the knock on Oklahoma City last year and talking to teams about playing the Thunder, right, was this notion that you could push them around. Right? That like they weren't physically up to it. That they were kids playing a grown man's game, and that eventually in the playoffs, like, teams would, for lack of a better term, would just Oakley their way through them. Right? Like, kind of like that's how you would beat the Thunder. Yeah. I don't think you can do that anymore.
No, you're not going to push them around. And I think we look at them and say, oh, they're the baby Thunder. I don't know if they're the baby Thunder anymore in the way that we think of a team that has to have multiple heartbreaks. This league moves so freaking fast now. Like, your championship window is 2 years. So if in my opinion, championship windows are 2 years in the NBA. It moves too fast. You have to pay guys. You have to get guys out of there, second aprons, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You don't have room to get your heart broken twice. You got room to get your heart broken once, you dust yourself off, and you try again.